This is Smart 24, and you are with me right here on Financial Markets as we try to explore what is happening in the world of finance and the stock market, both locally and also globally. And basically, to start with, we are having an insight and a deep look into what's happening in the stock market locally. And to start with, we have companies listed here on the stock exchange, that is the Uganda Securities Exchange, and we normally want to look at their share prices. The share price is the price at which you buy a share in a publicly listed company, or probably in any other probably company, even a private company, you can buy shares. But a publicly listed company, you actually buy more of stock, but they're more of the something though. So the share price is what determines at any one point in time the performance of a particular company and the confidence that the public, probably even other stockholders, have in that company. So the share price is an important parameter in gauging the performance of a company. Though keeping other factors constant, a company can still remain profitable, it can still be doing well when basically its share price is constant. But it is always important to note that the more you have an active share price, probably the more it is valuable and changing and going up, and even sometimes down and active, probably you start to see some level of confidence from the public and from the stockholders as well. So right here with me is a market snapshot from Uganda Securities Exchange. And right here, as you can see, this is a snapshot that is showing us 16 companies that are listed on the Uganda Securities Exchange. And to start with, we have Bank of Baroda. So the Bank of Baroda, as usual, is at a share price of 90 shillings as we speak right now. This, remember, is what is basically happening just this morning. It's a market snapshot just taken this morning, but in the evening, of course, as the day goes by the close of day, we can basically see what has really transpired in this in the stock exchange. But nevertheless, it is the Bank of Baroda share price is at 90 shillings, and we can see here it has hit its low at 90 and also its high at 90. So we can say that it's been probably like this for quite a few moments earlier. So as you can also have a look at the British American Tobacco Uganda. The British American Tobacco Uganda is trading at 15,000 shillings per share. And that is basically what it is trading at. So meaning if you want to buy a share in British American Tobacco, you will have to buy it at the price. You have to buy a share at the price. So you can see also here that it has hit its low at 15,000 and its high at 15,000, and the price still remains 15,000 shillings per share. Century Investment Company Limited also is listed on the exchange, and you can see that it is trading at a share price of 440.27 right now as we speak. It's hit its lowest at 440.27 and its highest at 440.27, and thus remaining at 440.27. So not much of a change also in the previous few moments. Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Limited is trading at a share price of 93.22 as we speak right now. It's hit its lowest at 93.22, its highest at 93.22, and thus stable and also remaining at 93.22. And well, we can also say nothing much has basically happened over there in the past few moments. Having a look at other companies, for example, the Development Finance Company of Uganda, that's DFCU Limited, its share price is at 564.00. It is highest at the same and its lowest at the same, thus keeping it at 564. This is the market snapshot. I'm giving it to you as is, and I am not basically framing any of these numbers myself, and I can't do that because I'm here to give you real information and feasible information per se. The East African Breweries Limited is trading at a share price of 4,852.28, and also it hit its highest at, it has hit its highest at 4,852.28. That's the same actually. It has hit its side at the same and also its lowest at the same, and thus remaining at 4,852.28. Having a look at Equity Bank. Equity Bank Limited is trading at a share price of 1,550.25. It has hit its lowest at the same, its highest at the same, and keeping it at 1,550.25. KCB Group, let's have a look at KCB Group. KCB Group is trading at a share price of 1,373.52, and it has basically remained the same from its highest to the lowest, and thus staying at a share price of 1,373.52. Having a look also at Kenya Airways. Kenya Airways is trading at a share price of 118.75, thus staying at that for the past few moments. So we can see that there is no change for many of these companies that we have just concluded, except MTN. Let's now have a look at MTN. MTN, the latest entrant, probably the latest company that joined the stock exchange. Well, it is showing that right now, as we speak, the value of an MTN share is down by 0.04%. Well, that is, well, not so bad per se, but as we can see here, it has hit its lowest at 180 shillings per share and its highest at 180 shillings per share, and thus it has indeed increased. In the past few moments, it increased to 180.08 from 180.00. So thus seeing some bit of a downward trend in its share price. So we can see here that right now it is trading at 180.08 shillings per share, and that value basically that's the value at which it has reduced to. So looking at National Insurance Corporation trading at a share price of 5.1, and it has hit its highest at that and its lowest at the same, and thus remaining at 5.1 shillings per share. The Nation Media Group also has, it's basically trading at a share price of 626.30, and it's remaining at that in the first few moments. It is highest at the same and also its lowest remaining at the same, and thus remaining at the same figure and value. The New Vision Printing and Publishing Company Limited, it has had a few bits of challenges of late, basically because of management, but we see right here that it is still on the exchange and is still listed right here. So it is trading at a share price of 160.00. It has hit its highest at the same, its lowest at the same, thus staying the same at 160 shillings per share. Probably also having a look at other companies traded on the exchange. We can see over here that yes, we have Stanbic Bank Uganda Limited. Stanbic Bank Uganda is trading at a share price of 26,000 of I beg your pardon, at 26 shillings per share. And that is the share price of Stanbic Bank. However, it is also important to note that Stanbic Bank, you can access, you can basically have to pay for you to have these 26.00 has remained the same also throughout. So nothing much has basically changed. So I'm trying to look at also Uganda clays here. Uganda clays is also still at a share price of 23.00. And this per se has also remained the same. It is highest at 23 and its lowest at 23 remain the same, and therefore we haven't actually had any change in the first few moments. And Uganda Clays was the first company to be listed on the exchange, and that is something you should know, in 2000. And then all the other companies came on board, and half of these companies are cross-listed from the Nairobi Securities Exchange to the Uganda Securities Exchange. And just recall that you can actually list your company, you can actually issue shares of your company with more than one exchange. And so it's just a matter of disclosing all information and also meeting all the requirements to basically do that. Umeme shares are down by 5.56%. That's quite something huge right now as we speak. It has hit its highest at 170, its lowest at 170, and its highest at 180, and thus remaining at 180. But in the previous few moments, it's showing here that it has basically gone down by 5.56%. So that is something probably that we may have to basically watch out. And of course, these kinds of trends and volatility are interesting things to note on an exchange, because when we have these kinds of trends happening all the time, it basically means that probably there is some bit of activity going on, at least not just seeing nothing. There is no blue, there is no red or green anywhere. So that indicates a Dow stock exchange. But here we can see some few bits of volatility here and there. But we hope for the best for many of these companies listed, and for the stock, and for many of you who have basically bought stock in many of these companies. And I think probably you have a very good insight and understanding of what the stock market in Uganda is. And so let's now turn to other finance updates all across the globe before we get into the global stock market. The global stock market is very interesting, and it is something that probably we may actually want to follow up all the time. So my colleague Shakira is with me, and we're going to be showing you exactly how these are performing. But first, let's have a look at the updates, the finance news and updates. The finance news and updates first. So my colleague Shakira is going to help us do that, and first go to the finance news and updates before we come to the global stocks. So having a look at what's happening elsewhere around the world, finance, and that is what we're basically looking at. And just probably we may actually go down, if we may just go up. If we may just go up, we can see here global finance news, and this is courtesy of Reuters. But let's just look at what's happening over here. Yes, so it is important to understand that all this information is basically very vital for you, and most especially that you actually need to stay abreast of what is happening all across the globe and all across the world, because many of these events affect us, whether you like it or you don't like it. They will affect you and I at some point in time. It can be probably a difference in the magnitudes, but it is always basically there. And so let's just now go straight to the global stocks, because that is where our emphasis, then we shall basically come back to this, because that is basically what we would want to see. So as we can see, yes, as we can see over here, the US stock futures pair losses as fire extinguished at Ukraine nuclear plant following Russia shelling. Well, these are very important headlines to note. And before actually we get into the stocks, it's very important we get into the headlines. So the US stock, as you can see right here, as we can basically, we'll be going down, showing you what's happening. The US stock futures pair losses as fire extinguished at Ukraine nuclear plant following. And you can see the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war. And it is very much important to note that it has indeed done some bit of damage on the global stock market and also trading all across the globe. And as you can see, that futures here include commodities and also some bits of stock. They are more like contracts that you basically agree with the seller to, the buyer and the seller agree to trade a certain commodity or a stock at a fixed price at a given period of time, just to avoid any external forces of demand and supply interfering with the price or with the deal. So many of these futures are basically losing out because many of them, you have these companies at the core of the stock market. So it is very important to understand that there are always fears. There are always fears when we see such kinds of global events happening around us. And by all means, the stock market is affected by a single event every single day. And that's why investors are very cautious, and they'll either put in their money or withdraw their money, or probably they'll either buy or they will sell depending on their goals. So it's very important to understand. So let's now have a look at steel. When we look at this, war in Ukraine, Russian forces take control of key Ukraine nuclear site. I think this is very important to know, because as the war goes on, many of these, depending on how they sound in the eyes, probably in the ears of the investors, it is always, there's always a response. There's always a response to that. So when you have a look here also, Ukraine crisis creates cracks in the ETF complex. And also having a look at more as US lawmakers push to ban Russian oil, analyst sees limited impact on prices for Americans. So, well, that is it. That is it. And well, that's it for that particular story. But of course, there are so many others basically that are coming up. And just recall that we are having these updates coming in over time. So keeping track of them is very important. And well, so that's very much important to note over there. But let's just now have a look into the global stock market. That's it for a bit of finance news. And what is very interesting is to watch the global stock market at all times, because it is really what gives us a very good glimpse of what is happening also around the world. So whenever you see stock markets volatile and very active, there is an event affecting that always. And so right here, as we can see, we have so many wonderful updates here, and most especially with the global stock market. And this is courtesy of Market Watch. So just to start with, let's now start with the US and just have a look at a general feel of what the markets are saying over there. And this is what is actually very exciting to know. It's exciting to know that in America you have all today. Today you have all and most of the indices showing that the stock market is losing by a certain percentage as we speak right now. So just this morning, probably not even this morning, but what's happening right now, because these figures are changing as I speak. But having a look at the US indices, remember that these indices are basically platforms that represent a group or a cluster of companies and how they're performing, their stocks are performing. And so these, when you look at the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, these are all measures. They're all measures of how all these clusters are performing. The Dow Jones is one of the most respected indices, and it is basically trying to track down the best performing, 30 best performing publicly listed companies in the US. And here we see that it is showing, the Dow Jones is showing that companies are losing, their stocks are losing by about 0.29%. And if you compute that percentage change, it equates to 96.69 points. And thus 794.66. That is the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones is, remember, it is tracking down 30 best performing publicly listed companies. And for experts that invest in such companies, probably they actually do really, they are basically very well acquainted with this index. It's one of those that are here in the corridors of investing as very much profitable. But a share price right now as we speak is down to 33,794.66 and having basically fallen by about 0.29%. That is the Dow Jones. It's one of the most important indices to basically watch out for in the United States each and every time. So now having a look at the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is also an important index because it's tracking down 500 best performing publicly listed companies in the US. And so this is what it is saying. S&P stands for Standard & Poor's, and the S&P 500 is one of the most prestigious term that probably you can use to identify a company in the United States or even today. When you say my company is an S&P 500, well, basically it just simply means your company is among the best 500 publicly listed companies. So the S&P 500 is tracking down 500 best performing publicly listed companies, and is saying that their stocks are down by 0.53% as we speak right now. And that change is basically equated to 23.05 points lost, and bring it to a value of about 4,363.49. That is the S&P 500. And just recall that there is always something that is affecting markets. Now, having a look here, the Dow Jones is losing, the S&P 500 is losing. I think there is something there to watch. But just recall that these are all industrial averages. They are all industrial averages, and they just give us an average computation of how their stocks are performing. However, doesn't mean that all the stocks are losing. Some are basically probably gaining and some are losing. But if you get the average of all that, it just basically shows that in general terms, it is basically losing on average. So it's an index that can give an investor an insight of really of the whole entire market. And if your interest is in the S&P 500, well, there you go. It's losing, the stocks are losing by about 0.53%. So the S&P 500 is one of those sought out for indices in the United States by investors and termed also as the best index to consider if you are to invest. Probably if you're a beginner, you may want to look at the S&P 500 and see what it says. It's giving us a more general and also bigger view. It is spreading across so many companies, 500 tracking down the performance of their stocks and then probably trying to compute that into an average that we call the S&P 500 industrial average, which brings us to that what you see there. So it is losing right now as well by 0.53%. And so before we get to NASDAQ and the global Dow and the rest of the commodities and see how they are performing, just recall that this information is coming to you live all the time right here from financial markets from 10 to actually midday. And just basically stay tuned as I actually bring you more and more at the top of this hour. I'm going to be right back.